Underrated and Overlooked podcast. We're here. We are live today, so we're doing a little bit different. Our other episodes were actually recorded, but this one is actually going to be live. So we are super excited and stoked. Craig, what we got on top for today?
Well, I think we're going to start with high school. We really set the tone. There's so many good matchups. I thought our first episode was really great, and I'm excited to build on it. As I said last time, this is the time of the year where high school is in the thick of it. We've got the college football playoff conversation really becoming interesting, starting to come into full picture. And then the NFL, we've seen a lot of teams kind of salvage their season, adapt their style. So I'm excited for it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we'll go ahead and get started. A couple topics today we're going to talk about. First, we're going to get into GHSA high school football. Just a reaction to kind of week one. I mean, so many upsets. You had Alatuna shutting down Douglas County and their potent offense. You had Harrison upsetting Brookwood on the road. No Dylan Longer in that game. That was huge. 7A is really wide open. Anybody can kind of win that. Obviously Buford's dominant, but none of these matchups, the matchups for 7A this week is going to be incredible. And then, will anybody be able to compete with, Langston Hughes? So what's some storylines stood out to you, man?
I think in 7A last year, it was almost like inevitable with Collins Hill. They made that run their junior season. And obviously Travis Hunter was explosive, Sam Horn at quarterback, but Collins Hill's defense was so good that year that once they came back the following season, it was like, okay, this is theirs to lose. Of course, they ended up winning it all, getting a chance to play for a national title. This year, it's so much more wide open. Yeah, you have Buford in there, but, they can be tested. I think their matchup with Walton, we'll talk about that in a second, but I think overall impressions with 7A, it's way more wide open this year. 6A, I was really impressed with Alatuna shutting out Douglas County. That's their third straight shutout. So, that's a team that really struggled early on, and they made adjustments, and they're playing outstanding. So if their defense can continue carrying them and playing like they're playing, they can beat with it, or they can compete with anyone, and they're on the opposite side of the bracket as Hughes, so they wouldn't have to face them anytime soon. They can make a big run. I think at 6A, you also have like these proud programs that you always have to keep an eye for, like Rome. Roswell's balling out. So I think 6A has a lot of good teams. There's going to be great matchups. But, I think Hughes is kind of in that similar position to Collins Hill last year, where they had a great run last season, nearly won the state title, and it seems like it's this is their year to get it done. Fell in a heartbreaker last year to Buford. And then 5A continues to be wide open. We're going to talk to Creekside tomorrow. I like the way they're playing. You have teams like Cambridge. We'll talk about that big matchup with Cartersville. I think I'm going with Cambridge in that one, but it's been really interesting and been in 4A. I want to see what Perry's going to do. They've been unstoppable. I think Bainbridge down in South Georgia, they're playing as good as anyone. North of Coney, Cedartown, Troop on the other side. Benedictine looked good, the defending champs. Really like them. And then in 3A, what we noticed was teams just absolutely lit up the scoreboard. There's so many explosive offenses like Sandy Creek, Stevens County. They're actually going to be squaring off soon. And I just think the way 3A is shaking out, you have those explosive offenses, but also just teams that are really athletic that can compete in a shootout like that. And so I just think 3A, once again, is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. Craig summed it up perfectly. So much happened in the week one that was really surprising. So Bainbridge's big win. Langston Hughes got a big victory. So did Buford. So, so much happened. And then 3A, will it be a collision course between Cedar Grove and Calvary Day? Or one of the other teams on the other side of the bracket kind of perform an upset. And that's what you love about playoffs. Playoffs, you never know what's going to happen. It always could be an upset. We saw two of them in 7A. So, incredible runs by these teams, and we're super stoked and excited of what week 2 is going to kind of, bring us. But one thing I will say is a team that stood out to me that I think can actually make some noise out there in 6A is Houston County. They upset Brunswick 10-0, 29-28. Antoine Hill has performed brilliantly along with their running back Ryan Talib. You pair those two, and then I think Hill is only a sophomore. So you pair those two, and potentially that could be – I don't know if they're on the same bracket, but that could potentially be a really good matchup with them, maybe even like a Gainesville or a Langston Hughes down the stretch. They have a really good offense, and their defense can make stops when they need to.
Yep. They come out of that region with Northside Warner Robins. That's a team that actually beat North Cobb this year. They're outstanding. Lee County too. So I think any of those can. But yeah, with Houston County, it's the quarterback play. It's just the overall execution they've had, and yeah, they're a tough draw for anyone. I definitely think they're a potential sleeper or dark horse in 6A. They've been playing really well, and it's been something we've talked about. Really, Middle Georgia. We talk about the Atlanta powerhouses, the South Georgia ones, but Middle Georgia this year has been so good with all those teams I just mentioned, and they've been dominating the lower classifications as well. So I think Houston County, they can play with anyone.
Yeah, I agree. And we're gonna leave it there for kind of our reaction for week one. I mean, let's get into these matchups, man. I mean, I'm really excited about this. Preview some 7A football guys. I mean, we got some marquee matchups here. I mean, me and Craig were going over it. We looked at it. I mean, Milton Norcross. I'm gonna start with that one. That one looks kind of salivating for me. I mean, Milton comes in, nobody expected them to be here. They're in the second round. They got a potential to go to the third round. They play, of course, a tough Norcross team. They didn't win their region, but they won their week one playoff game against Mountain View. I think it's going to be an entertaining matchup. Milton can run the ball really well. Scott Maskowitz last game had 167 yards rushing and a touchdown. Then you pair that with Luke Nickel, who's been performing brilliantly. I mean, he had a great game in their last one. He could throw it. He could run it. He's efficient. Then you got DeBron Gallen, who had 104 yards and a touchdown in that game as well. And I think Nickel had 2 touchdowns now. Then their defense can get stops when they need to. So that's going to be intriguing. And then, can A.J. Watkins for Norcross continue to lead them? Can he, continue to make those throws and those big-time throws when they need them? Obviously, they got UGA commit Lawson Lucky. They can run the football as well. But this is a really good matchup. And Milton will be at home for this game. But what do you think about that one?
Well, I think Norcross has one of the better offenses they've had just in terms of their production. They're really scoring a lot of points. They've had a 70-point outing recently. So they look good offensively. Usually they're kind of average in that department, dominate defensively. And then with Milton, they started out this year kind of adapting as a passing team. But as you mentioned, they have Scott, what's his last name?
Maskowitz.
Yeah. If they have him taking 15 carries, 12 carries, and they're balancing out that offense, they're going to be really dangerous because they really do have an exceptional passing attack, something that Milton usually hasn't had. So I think they're kind of growing offensively into that balance attack. They're physical up front, and just the overall resilience, day-to-day operations of that program to be able to handle the season like they have with all the changes. It looks like they've kind of hit their form, and that's a team that made it to the state finals last year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're hitting their form, and I want to shout out Coach Ben Reeves, who's doing a marvelous job in his first year there at the home and got his team competing and performing well, and they didn't break the streak. They won a 5th straight region title, and now they have 29 straight victories in their region. So incredible by Coach Ben Reeves. Definitely want to shout him out for an incredible job. Our next matchup, though, Lambert North Gwinnett. This one is interesting as well. Lambert came in undefeated, 9-0. They were going for the best start in their school history. They got a North Gwinnett team who we got to shout out the sophomore quarterback Ryan Hall. I mean, last game only 11 passing attempts, but he was 6 for 11 for 3 touchdowns, and I believe he was their leading rusher last game as well with 84 yards. So I mean, he's been performing brilliantly. North Gwinnett got so many players. Ohio State commit Caden McDonald, who they use in certain packages in the rush to football. Grant Godfrey had a receiving touchdown. Their linebacker, Kentucky commit. So I mean, they got so many players that can perform well. And then you look at Lambert. Now Lambert might come into this game, they might not be favored, but James Tyre is a great quarterback. Their starting point guard. I mean, he plays really well. He could throw the football. He distributes to all the playmakers. Brandon Jones is having a good senior season at the receiver spot. They can run the football. So this is another matchup that's really intriguing. I'm curious to see what's going to happen, what they were going to be able to do.
Yeah, Lambert's having one of the best seasons ever, and I think in some of their close wins this year, they've basically gone to trick plays and just like caught the teams off guard. So they're really creative offensively. And I think it's the same sort of thing with North Gwinnett, where it's more of a luxury. They can bring in guys like Caden McDonald in these situations, put their big playmakers, their studs in there. And then, yeah, Ryan Hall, what a great season he's having, a baseball player coming in, running this offense. He's got a great arm. He's got the athleticism, as you mentioned, able to pick up some yards as well. But I think it's going to be the creativity of Lambert's playbook offensively. Can they kind of drop these big explosive plays? And yeah, I think that's a strength that they've had, just that creativity.
Yeah, I agree. And let's look up to our matchup. On Peachtree TV, guys, make sure you tap in. Go to scoreatl.com. Go to ScoreTL on Twitter right now, where we're currently live streaming on. We have the link there for that game if you guys want to watch it. It is free. And you can also tune into Peachtree TV at home as well at 8 p.m. kind of kickoff. But Walton and Buford, I mean, what a matchup. Walton comes in, Jeremy Heklinski is performing brilliantly. I think he has 3,000 yards passing on the season total, including the playoffs. Was able to get a Wake Forest offer recently. Really could sling that football. All those playmakers, Wyatt Sonderman, Aiden Jackson, Hunter Teal, Makari Bottifer out of the backfield. He had a 265-yard rushing game this season with 4 touchdowns. I mean, they got so many players they can beat you with this on offense. Oh, I forgot Cameron Lloyd, another playmaker for them. I mean, that offense is crucial. So I'm curious to see kind of how they're going to be able to match up with them. How are they going to perform? Buford, we know, as the creme de la creme, they like to run the football. They like to give it to Justice Haynes. They like to let him cook, and he's really good. So then they also got KJ Bolden, another guy. He's an athlete, but you could disguise him in a multitude of ways and use him in, different ways as well. So can Buford's defense shut down that offense, which we kind of seen the game earlier this year? They've been able to shut down offenses. Or will Walton go back and forth with them? What you think, Craig?
I think when I see Walton's offense, every team obviously can do this, but they do it the best. It's like when they snap the football, every single player, all the receivers, they all get off just like it's in sync. It's harmonious. They're so good at designing the plays, disguising these routes. Wyatt Sonderman has been a huge playmaker for him. I think he's really elevated the offense to the next level, coming up with all these big touchdown catches, being able to get behind the safety. So I think with Walton, it's their tempo. It's they get up to the line, boom. As soon as they snap it, their guys are dispersing everywhere. So it is a tough task defensively. But I think with Buford's offense, they've been so strong just in the first half of these games, coming out scoring touchdowns on their first 4 drives, and it's because of the play design that they can hand it off to Justice Haynes, they can mix in the run, they can take shots downfield. So they're able to kind of just orchestrate these long drives. But with Walton, if you watch this game, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. When that ball snapped, Heklinski's moving, he's rolling around, he's great at buying time for himself, looking downfield. He's honestly done a good job of not forcing too much this year. Something that maybe he did a little more as a sophomore. But yeah, the way the receivers are getting open, I mean, that is something that has really made Walton dangerous. I wouldn't expect anything less than Heklinski in this game to really air it out and show his arm.
Yeah, I agree. And can their defense, can Matthew Trainer, and can they make enough stops defensively to get the ball back to that kind of high potent offense to give them chances? And I think turnover is going to be big in this one. And if they can take care of the football, I think they'll definitely be in it. But Craig, I got to ask you, quick prediction, or if you have one, who you got in this one?
Well, Walton has they've never beaten a team like this. This high nationally ranked, undefeated. They've had big wins in the past, but I've seen them kind of match up in the playoffs with your Graysons or Bufords. They've had struggled in that department. They had a big win over Colquitt last year. That shook off some of those demons. They've lost to them a bunch. But if you look at Coach Bruner, I think he's been there since 2017. Last year was the only year they have not exited in the second round. So this is a tough matchup for them. Just you're playing Buford. I would go with Buford in this one, but I'm hoping that Walton can pull it off. And I will say this about their defense too, but also offensively, Hunter Teal's been a big playmaker. They can kind of go to him when defense is sleeping. But Walton's defense, they have given up a lot of points, but they have played physical. I thought they've gotten after it. They've had some good shots. Even that North Paulding game where they got lit up on the scoreboard, but still they have some guys that can make hits. So if they can put their hat on the ball or force some turnovers, just play physical defense and make it difficult for Buford, I think the offense can take care of it. And as long as they stay within striking distance and they have the ball in their possession, they can win the game.
I agree. I can't wait to see that one. That'll be really entertaining. If you guys didn't know, Craig is actually a Walton alumni. He went there and graduated school and went on to play at UGA.
Yeah,
So
we did not pass the ball when I was there. So I'm excited to see them in this. Yeah, as I said, I wish Heklinski was my quarterback. No offense.
yeah, would have definitely been different for Craig. But we'll keep it rolling, guys. A couple more matchups to preview. Westlake and Parkview. I mean, this is my sleeper. Now I've standed on it. I had Douglas County as a sleeper. That didn't go as planned, but I still think they're going to have a great roster next year with some of the weapons they're bringing back. But Parkview is the team for me. I just think Kyer Spain, this is who coach for Parkview and Lilburn. Eric Godfrey told us to keep an eye on. He's having a phenomenal season. Last game, I think he had over 100 yards rushing. They jumped out to a 34-14 lead against North Paulding, performed well. They can get some pressures on the quarterback. Colin Holt can throw the football. They got a bunch of ways they can beat you as well. So Westlake's not going to be easy. Westlake has a runner that's been performing well this year. Had to shout him out. Jaden Thomas, 845 yards rushing and 9 TDs. So that's kind of Westlake's game plan. They like to run the football, let that build into other things on the offense. So it'll be interesting to see early in that game who's going to start with the ball. If Westlake starts, can Parkview do enough defensively with that 7-man front? Can they, force some turnovers? Can they make can they kind of clog those running lanes? That'll be out the game what they're able to do there. And offensively, they've been rolling. They had that big win against Grayson. I thought that was huge for them to kind of get into the postseason. Can they continue in this game and actually, beat Westlake on the road?
Yeah, they responded well to the loss to Brookwood and with that win over Grayson. Yeah, they lost to Brookwood and Newton. I think with Parkview's offense, though, Colin Houck, I think he threw touchdowns to 3 different receivers. They have Mike Matthews. He's elite for sure. They really closed out the half, North Paulding, and didn't even put up points in the second half. So they scored 34 in the first half, really all in that second quarter. So I like their passing game, a great second. But then Kyer Spain, if they hand them 22 times and he picks up 150 yards like he's been doing against great defenses, I think Parkview can control the game and come out with the win. I think they're a dangerous offense this year, and it's because of Kyer Spain and then just the ability to disperse the ball to all these star receivers.
Agreed. And I think it'll be interesting to see who's going to win that one. Obviously, the winner of that will probably play Mill Creek, I think, in North Cobb, which is actually our next matchup. This is going to be on G. I think, this is like a matchup. It kind of sucks because you got 2 great teams that are going against each other. Both of these teams have state championship aspirations. North Cobb side, they've dealt with injuries. Their star quarterback, Malachi Singleton's been out with an injury, I think, to his foot. Grimstead has come in and played exceptionally well for them, 7-1 in his starts. They run the football well with David Medinga. They play defense well, collected as a unit. That game, they were down 3-0 to Denmark and scored 45 points unanswered. That's insane. I mean, they just took over that game, leaned on the ground attack. I think they had 4 rushing touchdowns in that one, 2 passing. They just played exceptionally well. Now, Mill Creek is kind of that team, same thing. They have state championship aspirations. Their only loss was to Buford in a game they were in up until, I think it was 3rd or 4th quarter, and they kind of pulled away. But Hayden Clark, kind of a guy that's under the radar, really good quarterback, can throw the ball well. But they can run the ball. Cam Robinson out there in the backfield, I mean, he's great. So you don't even have to put so much pressure on Clark to perform. And then you got playmakers in Brendan Jenkins and Mikael Wood, who you can throw the football to. And Caleb Downs is kind of their utility player. You can do all kind of things with him. I mean, so Mill Creek is a good team. And I think ever since that loss to Buford, I think they had a 45-0 victory, 54-0 victory. So they've been firing on all cylinders. But what do you think about that matchup?
So when I picture Grayson, yes, that has nothing to do with this. I picture like 6 defensive guys just swarming the opponent. When I picture North Cobb, that's a heavyweight team. They're big, they're physical. They can stack up with anyone in that department. But what makes Mill Creek so dangerous, in my opinion, we talked about how North Gwinnett is able to plug in Katie McDonald in a key offensive situation. No one has done that better this year than Mill Creek. They can bring in Jamal Anderson. They can bring in Caleb Downs, and not just handing the ball off. I mean, they'll put him in the Wildcat. They'll throw to these guys. So what Coach Lovelady has done, and it's not even just offensively. I looked at their defense last game. They had 24 different guys making tackles. The situational awareness of Mill Creek, the ability to plug in their top playmakers in key offensive situations, it makes them so dangerous in the red zone. They're so good at getting the touchdowns when they need to. And then Hayden Clark, his efficiency, I mean, he goes 9 of 12 last game, 2 touchdowns. Cam Robinson's balling out. So they're really getting everyone involved better than anyone. But I think they have probably better than any team in 7A, the ability to plug in their top playmakers in key positions, key roles. And I think that's what's going to give them the edge against North Cobb.
Yeah, this is going to be a great matchup. If you have nothing you're doing Friday night, I mean, Walton, Buford, or Mill Creek, North Cobb is going to be exceptional. Definitely tap into that. that one, that would be a great, actually, final and great game. Last opponent we're gonna talk about, last match, is 7A. Camden County and Grayson. Can Camden County pull off an upset? Now, Grayson, I gotta shout out. I mean, that last game they had against was exceptional. 3 victory. They had only 2 offensive touchdowns in that game. I mean, they had that 53-yard bomb to Caden Hyde, who's really their deep ball guy. They lost JoJo Stone. Unfortunately, had a situation where he had to transfer out, but they performed well. And I mean, they got a blocked punt that resulted in a safety. Then soon kicked off. Amari Austin returns it for the touchdown. And they got a pick 6 in that game, too. So talk about a kind of complete performance and overall victory. That's what Grayson just did. I mean, that was exceptionally well. And it's nice to win games like that, even if it's a playoffs, even you say, oh, well, the Grayson's the more dominant team. It's nice to be able to win games when necessarily your offense wasn't dominant. I mean, that just shows to how good and complete your team is. So that's going to come up big, when they play against better opponents. And I'm hoping we can get a Grayson Buford game. That has never happened in the history of Georgia. I'm hoping for that. So we'll see in this game. I think Grayson's going to win this one against Camden County. It's too many weapons. Tyler Atkinson on the defensive side of the ball. Jalen Smith, Tennessee commit. I mean, they just got dudes.
Your freshman, right?
That's the freshman. Yeah. All the offers. I mean, they just got dudes.
So, yeah, I mentioned when you picture Grayson, it's just 6 guys playing the football. But when that defense is playing at its top game, it's like it's not the quarterback getting rushed. It's not the quarterback taking a sack. He's taking like a 10-yard, 18-yard sack, literally scrambling for his life. So that's what Grayson's defense is capable of. And so when you're playing like that, you can beat anyone, and then just offensively protect the football, run out the clock, kind of keep your foot on the gas in that sense. You aren't even having to light up the scoreboard when your defense is playing like that. You're just kind of running the clock out, wearing them down, playing physical. And then, hopefully for them, it's like when they have that lead at the end or heading into the second half, they'll just hand it off to Joe Taylor, Derrick Henry style, and run out the clock. So I think that's going to be their formula. They aren't going to try to come out there and be fancy, but it's all with defense for Grayson. So I think that was a big statement for them. They saw Parkview the last week. They already had the number 1 seed locked up, and I think that was a statement against Hillgrove, just the way that defense was playing.
Yeah, and the final kind of statement on Grayson, I went. He's kind of an underrated player. 1,000-yard season last year, over 12 touchdowns. He's performing brilliant this year. In the game we had 4 rushing touchdowns against Brookwood. Athlete really takes that leadership role strong, wants to kind of make an impact, the difference for his teammates and that. So I think and how he's been performing has been exceptionally great. And you add that with Dylan Elder, I mean, that's incredible, and they can run the football really well. So I can't wait to see that matchup. But
7A is absolutely loaded.
I'm telling you, I mean, the best matchups. And then our final topic with the high school football, Cartersville. I mean, man, I'm gonna let you start this segment, Craig, and then I'm gonna go.
I just think Cambridge is gonna win this game. The way that team that's senior led, they're able to run the ball so well. The defense, and it's just like a school like Cambridge. They are kind of new to the scene. It's not the oldest school. It doesn't have some 50-year tradition, but across the spectrum of athletics, they're great at everything. They're a big powerhouse in wrestling. So they have all these guys on defense. I mean, wrestlers are tough. And when you have that kind of form, they have state championship wrestlers on their defense. It's like they've been absolutely getting after it, even in that Cal game. I mean, they were in control of that one from the first possession. And then offensively, they're tough, they're physical, and they have the big playability. So I just think they have so much experience. They're a team that can easily make a run in 5A. It's like, yeah, they don't have kind of the ultimate team speed, but they play so well as a unit. And I just think Cartersville has had some games where they struggled, and I don't think they played a team with the experience and poise of Cambridge this year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this matchup, I think, is going to be one of the best ones in the 5A. I mean, Cambridge and Cartersville. I mean, Cartersville got 2 guys that can beat you. They got Malachi Jeffries, who can rush the football really well. And then they got a sophomore, Jamari Bryce. It's kind of going under notice, but when I talked to the coach, he had 405 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. You add that with Malachi Jeffries, who's a 1,000-yard rusher. They like to run the football. So these teams are kind of almost similar. And then Paul Gamble for them has been performing well. He got injured earlier. He's been throwing the ball well, not turning over the football. I think that's been critical. That's been huge. Then you add, kind of, how they can throw the football with him as well. I mean, that's dangerous. But I like Cambridge. I mean, Christian Isabor performed brilliantly, had that hat trick last game, and then it came all in the second half. It was 6-6 at halftime against Jackson, Atlanta, and then they just went off. So I like him. I like Will Taylor on the outside. I think in that game we seen him against Kale, he had 4 different players that had touchdowns in that game. So they can beat you in a multitude of ways. I like how they perform. They perform great. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that game's going to turn out.
Yeah, Christian Isabor, he's played every season, but he's always gotten injured at some point. So he's healthy at the right time right now. And as you said, that offensive line loves blocking for him, and he's a tough runner. He's really got an incredible skill set. He's just a true playmaker. So I really think he's going to be the X factor. He's been outstanding, and coming off a 3-touchdown performance, that's where it's at.
Yeah. Excited. I'm going to have actually Craig Bennett on my podcast actually this week. I'm so excited to talk to him. That's going to be really good. And, I can't wait to get about coaching, because this would be, if they win, this is the best finish in school history. That's the second round. They've been exceptionally great. So I think for him to and then they won their first region title this year. So you add the region title, add the best school finish, that would be great. But Cartersville's not going to make it easy. They're a historic program. I think it's going to be really exciting and things like that.
Yeah. But yeah, true matchup right here. 5A is wide open, but I think the experience is going to benefit Cambridge. They're good at producing turnover as well. That's something that Cartersville just with some of the changes. But yeah, they're going to try to run the ball. I think Cambridge is going to come out and get after it early, put pressure on them, get an early lead, and then really pin back and kind of close it out.
Yep. And that's all we got for our high school segment. Be back in just a moment. We're going to bring on a guest. Jordan Dubroff, who actually works with us too on Friday nights doing the scoreboard, doing some recaps and things like that. So we'll talk to him momentarily. We're going to bring him in on the show, talk some college football. We're excited for that. So give us just a moment. We'll be right back. Can you tell Boss Man nothing? Can you tell Boss Man we're live and like they can hear all that when we're talking on the phone? Please, thank you. All right, guys, we are back. Had to take a quick segment break. We're going to be bringing somebody on, Jordan Dubroff, who works with us. Let's see if we can get him on. All right. Oh, cool.
What's up?
What's going on, man? Thanks for joining the show. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. How are you guys?
We're good, man. So this is the first time last week was our debut episode. This is our first episode of kind of having a guest on and trying to do it live, man. So this is all unique for all of us. So we're just doing, good test runs and seeing how it's going. What about you, man? How's your week been?
My week's been good.
All right, man. Nice. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Football, man. Okay, so LSU clinches the SEC West. They're going to be in the bout with Georgia, who we're going to get into. That's going to be a really intriguing matchup. But just LSU, they were predicted to go bottom 5. Here they are, winning the conference over Bama, over Ole Miss. And their last game, I got to shout out their running back. Josh Williams was big for them. He had a ground game. He had 118 yards rushing. He performed brilliantly. They had so many transfers coming in, a new coach, new coaches. What did you think of LSU's run this year?
Yeah, I think it said best after that win, and it's so true. They have found the culture of winning. And so when you kind of hit that spark, that's something that really bonds the team together. They clearly had a season where no one really predicted this. They've already reached the West. They've got that big matchup with Georgia coming up. So I think in the next couple of weeks, it's just an opportunity to keep this thing going. And then, man, you show up on the big stage and let it all out against a great Georgia team. This really could be one of those. They've definitely found that culture of winning. They believe they can win now, something that maybe early on, the 1-point loss starts the year, but they've really turned it on. And been able to close out games too, just forcing fumbles at the right time, running the ball, picking up the key first. That's a mindset. That's an attitude, and they're playing with it.
Yeah, I agree. What's your thoughts on that, Jordan, about LSU?
I love LSU. They have a really great head coach over there, Brian, well-known coach. I think it's going to be a great game coming up later next month.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, them playing Georgia, that would be interesting to see if they'll actually have a chance in that one. And shout out Jaden Daniels and some of their team. They've been performing well. They believe in Coach Kelly, and they're performing at a brilliant level. But let's keep it going with Georgia. They clinched the SEC title, a major victory actually against was it Mississippi State on the road in Starksville. Stetson Bennett just made a move and shook the defender out of his shoes. I mean, that was incredible. A little kind of stutter, like I'm gonna go inside. Nope, I'm going back outside. It was incredible to see. I think he performed brilliantly. He performed well. But I mean, Georgia's rolling. Lad McConkey had talked about last week in our show. You add that with some of the weapons. Brock Bowers is obviously the best tight end in the game. Add Darnell Washington, who's 6'7", 200 and 60, 70 pounds. I mean, they're performing brilliantly, and I think they have a really good team. What do you think about that, Craig?
I think right now what we're seeing is Georgia is trying to become the new Alabama. They're doing it a completely different way. I mean, you look just mentioning Stetson Bennett and all these different guys, but really, I mean, they've showed up. It's everyone to see what they were going to do. They finally got the national title last year, first time in 40 years or 41 years, whatever. And it's like you see the way they've come out and just won game after game after game, and all these guys that I mean, you have the Lad McConkeys, guys that were not even recruited, that they fit in and played a really big role, which they play a tight end defensive. There's a clear championship attitude and mindset of Georgia right now. It's just a matter of can they continue it? They haven't played the most difficult schedule, but they're definitely handling business. They're getting a lot of guys involved, and the excitement's there. I mean, you can't really ask for more than what they've done coming back after last year's run.
Agree. What you think about Georgia this year, Jordan?
I love their team really much, very, very much. They've had a great. They can just keep on rolling. They'll have a chance to make it back to the national championship.
Yeah, they'll certainly be at the top of the poll again. Another strong performance, but like I think they had kind of that edge heading into this season where it's like, okay, we're the national championships. We aren't going to open the season number one.
Hold on. Hey, Jordan, can you hear us? Our connection's been kind of funky. You there, Jordan?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So,
I can hear you.
Craig was just – okay, great. Yeah, so Craig was just wrapping up talking about kind of Georgia in the season and, some players that's performed well. But we'll keep it pushing. I'm going to throw this one to Jordan first. What did you think about TCU and the win against Texas?
I have family who are a big Texas fan. I think it was an amazing win of TCU beating Texas.
For me, I actually had Texas with the upset. I thought their defense performed brilliantly. Your Texas defense play any better than that, in my opinion. So I thought they performed great. I thought the difference was they could not move the ball. Like Bijan Robinson had 12 carries, but he couldn't get anything going on the ground game. Quinn Edwards had a pick. The receivers couldn't get separation when he did. I mean, he might have had 6, 7 drops in that game. That was huge. I think obviously TCU knows what they have to do. They cannot lose a game, even if they go to the Big 12 championship, which I believe they locked the spot. They cannot lose that game either. Because I mean, the Big 12 is not, top heavy this year. I mean, no team is really standing out. I mean, obviously Texas completed hard with Alabama, but no team really stands out, obviously, there. But I mean, they leaned on in that game for TCU. I definitely wanted to talk about him. I think they got the best receiver, or at least top 2 receiver in the nation. That's Quentin Johnson. He's been performing well all season long. He's a real difference maker for them. And then Kendra Miller in that game had 138 yards rushing. He had a big touchdown. I think that was huge. That stood out to me in that game. Then you add kind of being able to set up the play action pass, being able to throw downfield, getting it going in the second half when you needed it most really stood out and made a difference. They only won by 7. But for TCU, I'm almost to a point I want to predict an upset next week, but I'm not sure. They play Baylor on the road after a big win over a rival. So those are kind of those get me games. It's like, oh, well, TCU should win. They got the better quarterback. They got the better weapons. They got the better defense. But it's on the road at Baylor. That could be a big letdown game. What do you think, Craig?
I think with TCU, well, first of all, it'll be interesting to see if they come in at number 3 or number 4 when the rankings drop. I see a lot of people saying they want them at number 3, but big win over Texas, another kind of big in-state game against Baylor, but they just got to do what they did last week: run the ball, set up the play action, and then defensively just not give up the big plays. So I think if they stay focused on their preparation, TCU is a good football team. But then in terms of the Big 12, you mentioned they cannot lose a single game, even if they lose and then end up winning the Big 12. You're absolutely right. The Big 12 has not had success in the college football format since it has been introduced. They've never won, so they don't have that benefit going into it. I think another team, even a 2-loss team, would jump them. So basically, they control their own destiny right now. They've just got to keep making plays and building this excitement. But a win over Baylor, that would be a huge step forward for them.
Agreed. And Craig is almost emanating me in this sense because that's literally my mantra. Like, run the football, don't play. I will stand by that. Any sport I talk about, it makes no sense to me. You have all these talented players, and what it comes down to is coaching. But I love the kind of rant by Craig. It really reminded me of myself and how I am. But our last kind of topic for college football, I think this is intriguing. Ohio State and Michigan. Who do you have more trust in to make the college football playoff? And they're going to play in another week from now against each other. So I guess I'll start this segment. I am going to roll with Ohio State. I think they're not even playing their best football. And I think it's really intriguing to see how they're going to kind of perform against them. I mean, Marvin Harrison's making a highlight reel catch almost every week. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, the one where he his whole body's out of bounds and then he still taps his foot in. I mean, that's crazy. Then you go the week before, I think they played Michigan State. He got his 2 feet in while being pushed out. I mean, he's just an incredible player. And then they have not had Jackson Smith and Jigba the whole year. So you add another weapon to that offense along with I think his name's Maya Williams and Travion Henderson. They got weapons galore. And their defense in that game against Northwestern, when they kind of struggled, performed really well defensively. They were able to kind of keep them in it when Stroud was not at his top-tier performance. But Stroud has thrown for 34 touchdowns this year. Obviously, he's a Heisman candidate. But I'm not going to sleep on Michigan. I do believe in Ohio State. I do think they will win. But Michigan, do you see the way they run the football? Last game against the Rutgers, they had 2 players over 100 yards rushing. What's his name? Blake. I think his name is Blake Correll. Let me get his name right, guys. Hold on one second. I gotta definitely do this. Let me see. I'm trying to get his name right. Blake Corum. I'm sorry. Blake Corum this year has 1,349 yards rushing and 17 touchdowns. So I think that could be the highly explosive offense. You'll see this in college football. You will see this in NFL. If you can run the football, build off play action, which, Craig just alluded to, you can keep a high potent offense off of the field. So the key for Michigan is they obviously got the talent to compete. J.J. McCarthy's having a good year, only 2 interceptions, 14 touchdowns, having a good season. But they can build off that run and run for over 150, 200 yards. Ohio State could be in trouble because they can ball control, run the clock, lean on that rushing attack. So that's another key element. But I'm going to still roll with Ohio State to further notice, but I'm not sleeping on Michigan.
Yep, you nailed it. So Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr., all their receivers, they have that extremely explosive offense. But as you mentioned, Michigan will be able to run the ball against them, and their defense has been playing tough. So I think if Michigan is to win this game, Ohio State's been dominating this rivalry. It's an outstanding rivalry. There's always that extra factor whenever they play, but the edge has gone to the Buckeyes. But I think Michigan showed a lot of physicality, and even their secondary, they're laying some big hits. I think they're kind of just, it's apparent when you watch them. They're just a more physical team than they've been in the past. That's something we haven't seen from them. I think they're really kind of honing in on that identity to carry them through. And I think if they go out there and start playing some mean football, they can pull something off. But I think Ohio State, you got to give them the edge at this point, just with their play outside.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that Michigan Ohio State game, Jordan? We know you are a big prediction guy in the office. You know, who you got winning that one, and what's your thoughts on both teams?
So Ohio State, Michigan, really great. I think I would love to see Michigan win this game on Saturday. I think game really both teams really great offense and defense. I think Michigan's 242 in that game on Saturday.
It would be something to see for sure. If Michigan pulls it off, it's going to be because they came out there and bullied them around and really established it physically. So, I mean, that would be spectacular. Because, I mean, it's going to take a great effort to slow down Ohio State.
No, definitely, I agree. And that's all we got, guys, for our college football topics. We hope you're enjoying the show to this point. Jordan, thank you so much for joining. Kind of our first time being actually live. I hope you enjoyed it. We loved having you as a guest, and the software is kind of pretty cool.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We'll see you Friday, man. Thanks again. All right. All right.
Awesome.
So we are back, guys. We're going to go ahead and get into kind of our last segment of the day, kind of almost my favorite one. Obviously, I love high school and college, but I love me some NFL football, man. This is where all my passion comes out. As you guys can see, I got my hat on, my Cincinnati hat. I am a fanatic when it comes to my Bengals, but we're not talking about them today. Let's talk about some Justin Jefferson. I mean, that catch, was that the best catch of all time? I mean, he went over him like this, like a moss, caught the ball over, I think his name was, it might have been Jackson. I don't know who the defender was off the top of my head, but that catch was incredible. The game was on the line, 4th and 18. I mean, Craig, when you seen that catch, what were your thoughts, man?
Well, back in my receiver days, I loved T.O. I loved the celebrations. I loved all that. He kind of took it next level, but my first response was they need to immediately make that catch the new NFL logo. Let's trademark it right now. Let's make it the logo. But honestly, it was the best catch I've ever seen. How he was able to, because normally, as I said yesterday, it's like you would have to trap it on your shoulder pad or something. He didn't do that. I mean, his arms bent all the way backwards. He's pulling it out of the hands of the defender. It's just unbelievable. And that's just it's worth the price of admission. That's why you go to an NFL game to see something that you've never seen before. And that was definitely one of those types of catches. I mean, that's like the equivalent of going to the game where Vince Carter just like jumps over the guy. It's like, wow, I've never seen that before. I mean, that was the same type of just athleticism and just professional ability that you won't see anywhere else. That was just incredible.
I agree. And to kind of back up Craig's point, go look up on YouTube Vince Carter's dunk in the Olympics, posterizer, and that play resembles that definitely. It reminds you of that. Obviously, two different sports, but just kind of just oh my gosh, kind of feeling you got when you watch both of those plays is very imminent in both. But I also wanted to shout out Jefferson. He also has the most 100-yard games in the first 3 seasons of the NFL, surpassing Odell Beckham. So phenomenal talent. My dad knows this. I've said it to a lot of Eagles fans. I don't understand for the life of me why you would choose Jalen Reagor in the draft over Justin Jefferson when he was sitting there. It doesn't make sense. He went to TCU. Jefferson played in the national championship game, won, was dominant, along with Jamar Chase. That's probably one of the worst draft picks ever, if I'm being honest. now, ironically, Rager is actually on the Vikings. But yeah, if you're Philly, you got to be sick with that. But they've made up for it getting Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. But still, you should have got him. But I mean, can we say now, are the Minnesota Vikings legit? I mean, to go in there on the road in a tough environment against who everybody calls a Super Bowl favorite, powerhouse of a team in Buffalo, to come on the road and win that game. I mean, like Craig, like you said in our text messages, that was almost a miracle. I mean,
Yep.
for
It was a
them,
wild ending.
that was wild. Like they got the fumble on the 1 yard line from Josh Allen. They could convert that to a score, and then Allen comes right back, leads it down the field for the field, and then they go down and get the field goal. They're on the 1 yard line, can't get it in, and then for their defense to get that pick, Patrick Peterson 2 picks on Josh Allen, that was huge. So, I mean, they kind of needed that signature win. That's what we were talking about last week. That's what they essentially did. I mean, Buffalo is going to be there when it's said and done, no matter where they're at right now in the standings. Obviously, if they're in the division, the Jets are above them because they beat them head to head, and the Dolphins are above them because they're 7-3. But excuse me, when it's said and done, Buffalo's going to be there. So I think this is a big win. I love their weapons. They can run the football with Dalvin Cook. He had a big, I think it was an 80-yard run in that game. You throw another weapon in the mix. I don't know why the Lions traded T.J. Hockenson to the Vikings. I mean, that just adds another weapon to them, and he can catch the ball well and over the middle. So that opens up that kind of element of their game. So, I mean, are the Vikings legit?
Yeah, it's just I want to talk about how that game unfolded though. So you're looking at that 27-17 Buffalo lead. They decide not to kick a field goal and go up 13. People question that analytics. When you come up empty and don't get any points, it's like, yeah, 13 points isn't a 14-point lead, it isn't a 15-point lead, but it was those types of plays where the Vikings just kept responding. And so, I mean, you think about the locker room after it, every single person was kind of involved in that comeback and that basically overtime win where they really took it from them. And so I just thought it was such a good team win from them. You got to be impressed with the efficiency they're passing the ball with, and then just the defense being able to make those plays. I just thought they were honed in, they were focused, and just the Bills kind of let it slip away. Something they've done a couple times this season, and obviously in the playoffs last year to the Chiefs. So I think the Bills, they're still ultra talented, but that one definitely hurt, and I think that's a big lift for the Vikings moving forward.
I definitely think so. And obviously, the Vikings have another chance to prove it against a really good Dallas Cowboys team we're going to get into in just a second, who they're going to play actually this upcoming week. But big win for Minnesota. Way to play by Jefferson. 10 catches, 194 yards, and a touchdown. I think T.J. Hockenson had 7 catches for 49 yards. I think Thielen had 3 or 4 catches in that game. Dalvin Cook had over 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. I mean, just incredible. So this team's going to be able to set it done. Their defense got enough stops when they needed it most. Darius Smith, they're on the outside rushing the football. I mean, on the pass rush. They got so many ways, man. They could beat you. But man, my biggest question is going to continue to be with Minnesota. You can call me out for it. Kirk Cousins, man, that's what it's going to come. Have a roster where they can make a deep playoff run, and it's going to come down to Kirk Cousins threw 2 picks in that game. Can he make the throws, which we've seen him do it on the line? But some teams you play, you turn the football over 2 times, you're not going to win a lot of games. So he has to be more. He has to be better with the football, making sure he's not turning over the football because he got so much talent on that team. Again, I'm going to say it one more time before we transition. Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, who I think is the best receiver in the game. Adam Thielen, a good number 2. T.J. Hockenson, a good offensive line. Also, the backup running back, Alexander Madison. They got so many weapons. So it's going to come down to QB1 and if he can make enough throws when it matters most. And can he perform in those critical pressure situations? We'll leave it there. All right. So we got to talk about this. I love it. Packers upset the Cowboys. They needed some humble pie. They really did. The Cowboys. Everybody, every year. I mean, just every year, they get all this hype, like they're going to go to the Super Bowl, and they fold every time. I mean, you lost to a 3-win Packers team that lost 5 straight. You let a rookie receiver who has dropped touchdown passes, and Christian Watson. Now, great game, but he's dropped touchdown passes. Cook you for 3 touchdowns. Again, the defense was supposed to be the staple of this team. It's supposed to be what took over for them, but they didn't perform well. They were rushing the football with Aaron Jones. They couldn't stop that. I mean, Dallas held a 28-14 lead in that game. And for you to lose, I mean, I think says a lot. And Dak Prescott did not perform well, in my opinion. Obviously, he threw the 3 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb ball with his 10 catches, 145 yards, and 2 TDs. But to have that red zone interception and have, back to back like that, again, Dallas, it comes down to quarterback and coaching. It's every year. I mean, last year they had the team. Lose to San Francisco. I mean, they had Lamb, Mari Cooper, Dalton Schultz, healthy. Dak Prescott, their defense was good. Maybe you could make the argument the defense is better this year, but you got all the weapons. They had Michael Parsons. They had Trayvon Diggs. They had Leighton Vander Esch. They had DeMarcus Lawrence. And I think they even had the one that went to the Broncos. I can't. But every year they have all these weapons. So to lose to the Packers, what's your thoughts,
I want
Craig?
to start with the defense. I think Dallas has the ability to get after the passer, but they got against the run. Aaron Jones kind of gashed them. Other teams have been able to do that too. And then Aaron Rodgers, 14 for 20 for 3 touchdowns on them. Ran the ball, they moved it, that allowed them to get back in the game. And then you mentioned Dak Prescott. I mean, he's making all this money, so when the game's on the line, you think, okay, it's 4th down. We aren't going to settle for this long field goal. We're going to put the game in your hand. Please, dear God, Dak, make a play for us. And then it doesn't happen. And so you kind of see exactly what the overall mindset is. It's like they've made that investment in him, and so that kind of dictates the decision making, and it just hasn't worked out. And that was a really bad loss for him.
Yeah, I agree. And Craig, you brought up a great point. You're paying him all this money, 4th down, game on the line, and it's consistent though. That's the thing. I mean, we've been asking this for years. You asked this. He's like a 7-year veteran now. He's 29 years old.
That's them saying, we're paying you. Please make a play for us.
When has he done it though? When have they gotten past the second round of the playoffs? Maybe even the first. I mean, if he was going to do it, he would have did it by now. It has not been done for the Cowboys. They have not been back to a Super Bowl in 25 plus years. I don't think it's going to happen. But hey, we'll see. I think they're going to lose their second game in a row this week against Minnesota. They're not going to stop Justin Jefferson, and they can run the football with Dalvin Cook. So that'll be an entertaining matchup. But again, Craig, great point. I mean, that's what you're paying him for, and yet he folds. We'll leave it there.
And see it. I mean, that's why they decided to go for it. That's what you do, because then if you did, we should have gone for it. We're paying him all this money, and so and it just hasn't worked out as you said. So that's a tough one for that team. But I also think defensively, the way the Packers were able to run the ball on them, that's a problem, because they can get after the passer, but you can win just by staying honest to the run against them. I mean, that's going to be kind of a vulnerability for them moving forward.
I agree. So we got 3 more topics, guys, before we wrap the show for today. I want to talk about the Chiefs, and then we'll get into the Bills, and I want to talk about the kind of Monday night game last night and kind of get my thoughts on that. All right, let's talk Chiefs. I mean, that was a good win. I mean, 7-2 now. You beat Jacksonville. Mahomes threw 4 touchdowns, was throwing the ball brilliantly to 3 different receivers: Travis Kelce, Kadarius Toney. Forget the third, but Toney looked good. I mean, that's another weapon. He can run it. He can catch it. You add that to the offense when McCole Hardman comes back from his injury. I mean, Chiefs has a multitude of ways they can beat you. I mean, that looks like a really good team. I'm not going to lie to you. What's your thoughts, man?
I think Mahomes able to hit intermediate plays with his receivers. I mean, we just haven't seen a team like this. They're so good. The coaching, all the different targets, the way they're able to move on from Tyreek Hill, it's just been impressive. And I think it's exactly what we were talking about last week. It's their offense after they won the Super Bowl. They had that kind of saying, run it back. But this year's offense is really using deception, misdirection. Mahomes is improvising, and the receivers are just all in tune. You can tell this team practices. You can tell they're all focused. They're probably hanging out on Thursdays before games at each other's houses, going over the game plan. I mean, they're just completely bought in. You can see that. Whereas teams like the Las Vegas Raiders, sometimes they look like they haven't been practicing, to say the least. So I just think they're putting in the effort. They're students of the game. They trust Mahomes. He might not win the MVP this year, but I don't know if there's a quarterback that's more valuable to the team than he is. Can't really plug anyone else in and replicate the success they had. So I just think it's a true team effort. They know what they're doing. They know how to maximize their talent, and the offense has just continued to find new ways to beat defenses.
And a quick question, this is just a look ahead. What do you think about this matchup against the Chargers? Obviously, you can go in here on the road, get a sweep. This is going to be on Sunday Night Football. Chargers been missing a lot of the weapons, even in the game on Sunday. They were missing Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Jalen Guyton's out with a torn ACL. They're missing a lot of weapons. What do you think about that matchup?
I like it. I mean, I think that, yeah, as you said, they have the best record in the AFC right now. Maybe go against just an exceptional defense. As we mentioned, that they have had some tough times against defenses that will not rush Mahomes and kind of sit back. We saw what the Titans did to them, but I just think when they're in control, the way the offense is playing, the way Mahomes is, they're just too tough to stop at this point.
I agree.
Even Harrison Butker, I mean, he was missing field goals in that Titans game. If he's kicking well, it's like they just are a complete team.
I agree, man. It's going to be a good matchup. It's a game kind of the Chargers need. If they lose that, they'll drop to 5-5. The wild card race is actually heating up. 2-3 teams are 5-4. My Bengals are 5-4. Patriots are 5-4, and the Chargers. So a lot of competition there for that 7th spot. We'll see kind of what happens this week. Big week for all these teams. I think the Patriots play the Jets. That'll be very interesting to see what happens. Our next segment, man, should the Buffalo Bills be worried about Josh Allen? 3 straight games with 2 interceptions. This past game, I think he had 2 red zone interceptions. Just turned over the football way too much. Obviously, we know how talented he is, but they depend on him a lot. He came in the game with a UCL injury to his elbow. Should Bills fans be worried?
Yeah, I mean, one of those interceptions on 4th down, they'll excuse that away. It's like, oh, it's basically like a punt or whatever. But yeah, those are key interceptions. His team was in control. You want to see him not turn the ball over. That's the number one job. So they'll definitely be concerned. I mean, he still has one of the best arms in the league. He's an outstanding quarterback. But I still say with Buffalo, the colder it gets, the better they get. I think they're gonna be just fine. They've had some tough losses, but I still think the talent's there, and Josh Allen's a really great quarterback. But what do you think about Tua? I'm gonna ask you that.
I'm gonna give the man his respect. I think for Tua, I think he's in the MVP conversation. He's had, I think, 3 straight games of over maybe 75 plus completion percentage. They obviously got the weapons for him to Tyreek Hill, Mike Gesicki, Jalen Waddle, the running backs, Raheem Mostert. I think they traded Edmonds, but they got Jeff Taylor. I mean, they're performing well, and this is a hard team. It's going to be a hard team to beat down the stretch. I think Tua's performing brilliantly. My only concern with him is just the injury. That's it. We can't say he's not been accurate. We can't say he's not putting the ball out there for his receivers. So I think he's in the MVP race. I think he's in the MVP conversation. I think Tua's having a marvelous year. We will see if they can continue it. This is kind of that team that under their radar. And I feel like every year in the NFL, we get a team that's fine on their radar. Oh, well, they're 7-3. Who cares? They haven't beat anybody. But then you come playoff time and they're really dangerous. So that's another team. And then real quick point on the Bills. I mean, it's got to stop turning the football. That's the biggest thing. Obviously, we know how talented this group is. Gabe Davis. I thought some good signs for the Bills were Gabe Davis was able to kind of go off in that game. He had a touchdown, I think, close to 100 yards receiving. Stephon Diggs, we know, is kind of their staple, but they were able to get Devin Singletary involved. He had 2 touchdowns. They rushed the ball pretty decently in that game. They were able to throw the ball to the tight end, Dawson Knox. So Isaiah McKenzie has some big key receptions. So if you can be balanced and you can get the ball to a multitude of weapons, you'll be fine. But Josh Allen just has to stop turning the football. They have to stop being so reliant on him and kind of just depend on other people to kind of make up for it. But what do you
think in terms of keeping score, I think every quarterback in the league would want to have a Tyreek Hill. I think he's a guy that draws so much attention defensively. We really haven't seen anything like him. His ability to scare defenses and to tracking exactly where he is a huge help. I think with Tua, it's those intermediate plays where his accuracy has been really strong so far. So he's able to get the ball out quickly. He's hitting all these targets. You mentioned one. They've got an outstanding cast of receivers, and he's doing his job. So I would give him a lot of credit. We were obviously worried about that injury earlier in the season, but I mean, having a special year, and if they to win like that, I think he's going to really be celebrated and respected for it.
Yeah, I agree. Having a great season. I can't wait to see how they can perform. And that AFC East is very interesting. 7-3 Dolphins, 6-3 Jets, 6-3 Bills, and then you got 5-4 Patriots. Who's going to win the division? I mean, those 2 losses now are kind of looming large for the Bills, and they got a big game coming up this week. They got to win. So that's going to be interesting. Who's going to win that down the stretch? I mean, obviously money's on the Bills, but Dolphins and Jets might have something to say about that. They both beaten the Bills already so far this season. They're already 0-2, so that'll be really intriguing. But our last topic, I got to bring this up. This was on my mind. I talked to my dad. He's a big Philly fan. They're 8-1 now. I thought Washington came in there and kind of gave it to them. They rushed the football well with Brian Robinson over, I think, 48, 49 rushes in that game. Taylor Heineke, obviously, I'm still not sold on him. He needed to do, but I mean, he's a turnover back. Yes, Graham, I'm not sold on Taylor Heineke. I will keep saying it. No, sir, I am not. I thought the chain or whatever the game at the end of the game, I mean, he wasn't the reason they won the game, if I'm being honest. So I'm not sold on him. I thought overall the teammate played good. The defense played well. They forced some turnovers in that one. Terry McLaurin had a great game, over 100 yards receiving. They was kind of torching the defense. The problem for Philly, though, it's the same thing with my Bengals. They throw the ball too much. I mean, Craig, they had 2 rushes in the first half. You don't feed Miles Sanders. You don't feed Boston Scott. You don't feed Kenneth Gainwell. This is a run-oriented team. When they made that run last year, they were running the football. Obviously, we know you got the weapons. We know you got A.J. Brown. We know you got Devontae Smith. We know you got Quez Walker. We know you got probably one of the better tight ends in the game in Dallas Goedert. But still, I mean, you allow a team, when they know what you're going to do, you allow them to tee off on you. And that's what happened. They started to blitz. Obviously, I thought it was still a good throw by Hurts despite the turnover. I thought the defender just made a great play on the ball. But that loss is not on him. I mean, he threw a great ball. I don't know if you saw it to Quez Watkins towards, I think it was the 4th quarter. I mean, for him, just go down, bro. Just go down. I mean, that was a turnover. The Dallas Goedert, and I'm going to say this too, the refs did not help them at all in this game. The refs did not help them. I mean, that was a blatant face mask on Dallas Goedert that was not called. They need to implement a rule, if a call is missed, you can go back and review it. That was absurd. But run the football offensively. It opens up the play action. I don't know how many times I have to say that. I see it all the time. I see it in college. I see it in high school. I see it in the NFL. You got all this talent, but you never rush the football. And then when they started rushing, they was getting 5 to 6 yards a carry. You take the pressure off of Jalen Hurts and you open it up where the defense has to stay honest and guessing. Go look at Washington's game plan and what they did in that game. They controlled the clock. They had over 40 minutes time of possession. The difference in the game was Philly was on they're pretty much on their heels the whole game. They didn't know what Washington was going to run because they ran the football so well and so efficiently, and it made a difference in the game. And defensively, you have to stop playing this 2-shell coverage. You have all that talent defensively. You bring no pressure against a turnover-prone quarterback in Taylor Heineke. I'm going to come out here and say it. He turns the football over. How do you play 2-shell coverage with James Bradbury, Darius Slay, Marcus Epps, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who leads the league right now in 6 interceptions? You don't bring any kind of pressure against him the whole game? I don't understand that. You're not going to win against elite quarterbacks. You're going to play down the stretch if you don't try to blitz at all and you only try to win with your front 4. I'm not saying don't, bring that strategy in obviously against Mahomes and other quarterbacks. You might have to do that, but switch it up. He ran that the whole game, and they just were getting. I swear, Craig, it's like you've been a receiver. If you see somebody I'm gonna just outline it for you guys. If you're here and somebody's playing off you that much, you're gonna eat. All you got to do is a quick dig route, a hitch route, or even a slant. That's 9-10 yards, easy. Yep. They did that the whole. They didn't get out of that the whole game. So I'm like, that's the difference, though. So I've been their offensive coordinator. You didn't run the ball enough. Give the ball to Miles Sanders. Then let that kind of build into your play action. It's been a story all season. And then defensively, stop playing 2-shell coverage when you have an elite defense. This is not like you got sorry corners. You have some good corners. You have good safeties. You have a good front 7. Do some different things. Disguise some blitzes. Mix it up. Do something, So that's my play for the Eagles. Hopefully, they'll be able to wake up after this loss. But that was the big thing that stood out to me. But what stood out to you in that game?
Well, Jalen Hurts, you were pleased with how they played. Maybe run the ball more. How many pass attempts did he have? 50? Or what was it?
It might have been I think it was 30 because they only ran the bad part, Greg, was they ran what was it, 22 plays to Washington ran 55.
Okay.
Yes.
But then, yeah, so I'm interested in what you said about Philly's if you're running that cover 2 the entire time, as you said, you're going up against a turnover-prone quarterback. Why aren't you switching up the looks? And then it's not like they were able to stop the run anyway. So it's like if you're just allowing them to get all these short, easy passes, they're still moving the chains in the run game. It's like you gotta switch it up. So I think, that was definitely a bad look for the defense and a game that I don't think anyone expected the Eagles to come out and lose, but they sure did.
They did, and turnovers were key. 3 turnovers in that one, and obviously the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, Jonathan Gannon. You have to come up with a better game plan. It was either cover 2 or it was quarters coverage, which is cover 4. I mean, you cannot have those kind of. You have ball hawks and safeties. Again, you have really no weak link on your defense. Your linebackers, C.J. Edwards, Kaiser White, are exceptional. Your defensive front is good. Bring some pressure and make the quarterback make the throw. I'm not saying bring it on every down, but switch up the looks, man. It's not that hard. Switch up the looks. That's it. But Philly should be okay. But again, their demise is going to be coaching. They got all the talent in the world. When you are pass happy, you let a team tee off on you. Look what Washington did. They were bringing blitz. They were bringing pressure, and they started to get home. It makes a difference, man. I'll keep saying it. I'm going to stand on my laurels. Run the football. Let it build offensive play action. That's it. That's all you got to do.
The Packers did. That's what the Bucs did this week. It's what Washington did this week. I mean, even the Bucs. What do you think about them? Who's the other guy? It's not just Fournette anymore.
It was Rashad White. He had a great game. I mean,
Yeah.
he had over 100 yards rushing. Fournette went out. I think he has a hip pointer. He should be back for week 12. But he had a good game. He was slicing them up. I think the Bucs might have ran it like 40-something times.
Yep.
You got the GOAT at the quarterback. But they have not been able to establish a run all game. But again, when you're one-dimensional, it makes a difference. But the Bucs ran the ball. And they got the upset victory in Germany in order to defeat the Seattle Seahawks. It makes a difference.
Yep, absolutely. All week. We saw it all week. And then, especially same thing with the Packers. That's the only chance they had was to be able to establish a run, and they did it. And not only does it work, it gets you out of there with a win. It's pretty simple. So
I
we'll
agree.
see.
Yeah,
Not many teams. Maybe the Chiefs that 1 week against Tennessee, they weren't having any success running it, where they can get away with the 68 passes. But other teams, as you said, they aren't built like that.
No.
They don't have that ability to improvise and basically turn pass plays into running plays. The defense is just going to take advantage of it. So that's a key. And it's definitely worked, even against a defense like Dallas.
Exactly. And the key thing, man, just make the most of your talent. You obviously got talented players. Make the most of your talent. Know what you have and don't try to deviate from it. If you know what you have, just build on that and lean on some of your strengths for your team. That's it, man. But, Craig, man, you got anything else, man, before we wrap up for today?
No, just tune into our game this week. I think it's going to be, in terms of a high school football game, really entertaining. Buford, one of the top teams in the entire country. They're undefeated, playing a Walton team that they're going to be an underdog in it, but they're going to come out with a lot of firepower. I just think it's a good way to start off a football weekend, good Friday night football game.
I agree. Y'all tap into scoreatl.com. Make sure you follow Score Atlanta on Twitter. All of our social handles, our TikTok, our Instagram, our YouTube page, where this show will be actually up later on today. And also, we will have a promo tomorrow for the Buford versus Walton game. I did create a poll on there. You guys go vote now. Who you think is going to win this marquee matchup? One of the best teams in the nation in Buford versus Walton. This will be a good one. So y'all go vote now on our YouTube page. Who you think is going to win? Tap in tomorrow to Craig's show. The drive for the GHSA state title. That'll be interesting. He's going to bring on Creekside. So again, it'll be a great show. And the tap into my show for Thursday. I'll be back keeping it real with Najeh Wilkins, talking to 3 guests, 3 women coaches. I think it'll be very entertaining. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in, and we will see you guys soon. And I hope you guys are enjoying it. Underrated and overlooked. All right.